Hey guys, I'm Eclipse, and this is episode 3 of my kind of introductory videos of my metagame analysis series that I'm going to be doing. And today we're going to be continuing on the theme of the positions. We're going to be on to offlaners today. Now, offlaners are kind of the sad person who goes up against 3 heroes alone and cries and tries to do the best he can. Uh, they're kind of the hero that gets sacked in the early game in order for the other two cores to get what they need done. So, anyway, without further ado, offlaners, like I said, they're usually going to be against tri-lanes, and because they're usually against tri-lanes, survivability is really essential. And generally, you're going to see this in one of two forms in offlaners, or a combination of both, even. One would be a hero like Bristleback or Axe right now. These heroes are inherently tanky in the early game, so they're pretty hard to bring down. And, well, in the case of these two, I coincidentally picked. It's usually not this way, but sometimes they can kind of dish out damage too when they're being attacked, or, like, you know, get my point. And then the other kind of offlane, the other kind of group would be offlaners who have good escape abilities. Heroes like Phoenix, heroes like some teams have been using. Where is she? Queen of Pain recently. Who else? Maybe Weaver back in the day. Strength Morphling. So, again, heroes who are able to survive against 3, not necessarily 100% of the time, but I mean, you often see offlaners kind of feed a couple times in the early game. So imagine if you sent a Crystal Maiden there, or a Wisp. They're just gonna die and feed over and over and over again. So that's kind of why there aren't offlane heroes. So even if it's not it's not a surefire way for these heroes to stay alive, it is definitely important for them to be more survivable than most heroes. Another kind of key characteristic of offlaners is that generally, similarly to mids, they often benefit from the early XP, getting those quick levels up, but they at the same time, unlike mids, they don't really benefit from the early gold that much, not as much as a mid would. So you think about a hero like Batrider, right? Batrider wants to get his quick level 6 so that he can go lasso people. But as far as gold goes, all he really needs is a blink dagger. Doesn't really need anything more than that. So you don't really want to jeopardize your 2-position hero in the form of a Batrider, because he's not really gonna keep up his farm. So you're gonna kind of fall behind in farm generally. Of course, you could have, if you put a bat mid, maybe you have an offlaner who picks up the slack. Hero like, I don't know, Nature's Prophet. You don't really, but in the current meta at least, you're not really seeing these kind of catch-up carry offlaners like the Nature's Prophet and the Lone Druid as much. Like, pretty much never see Prophet. When we do see Druid, we see him in the safe lane or mid. Uh, the only one we have really been seeing recently is Bristleback. Because he can catch up with ancient stacks pretty well. And he also, like, with levels, he just becomes really tanky and he becomes a really good fighter, so he doesn't need the gold as much as it might seem in the early game. Obviously, he needs it later on, but he doesn't need it right away. So, yeah. Uh, that's kind of the main things you're gonna look for in a hero to see if they're a legitimate offlaner. Other kind of side notes, things that not all offlaners have, but a lot do. Most offlaners are able to catch up, whether it be with their team's help or without, or whether it be in the short term or the long term. And what I mean by that is, say you have your Bat Rider again. We're gonna go back to Bat Rider. You send your Bat Rider to the off lane. He's really sad. He gets level 3 by like 4 or 5 minutes. So not that great. Um Now he's far behind everyone, right? So he leaves the off lane, support rotates up to the off lane, gets some XP if possible, try to stop the tower from dying. And he goes into his jungle and there are stacks that the supports have made for him. He farms the stacks, he catches up, he gets Blink Dagger, and off we go. So a lot of offlaners have this capability. You think Bat Rider, like I just said, Bristleback with the Ancients, Axe can farm stacks. Sand King has been one people have been getting into now who can farm stacks. So generally heroes who can kind of retreat to the jungle and catch up. Generally though, one thing about offlaners is that offlaners they one it's kind of interesting actually. About I'd say in the current meta, almost let's say 90+% of the time, offlaners are initiators. Now, why exactly this is probably a bit debatable, but I have a few theories as to this. First of all, my guess is now, with a lot of these offlaners I've been talking about, right? Let's think about I'm gonna name some offlaners here. Let's go Legion Commander, Axe, Tidehunter, Sand King, kind of Doom, Bat Rider. Leave it at that for now. So, all the heroes I just listed are initiators, or can be initiators at least. They are offlaners, and they all need a Blink Dagger. This is where it comes in, right? So, like I was talking about why you wouldn't put a Bat Rider mid earlier, right? Generally, offlaners, for whatever reason, are heroes who really just want a Blink Dagger as soon as they possibly can. And they're initiators because of that. You think about, okay, I want a Blink Dagger, I don't really want much else, where am I gonna go, right? If you go one roll, you're gonna get your Blink Dagger pretty damn fast. But I mean, after that, your farm falls off because you're trying to move around the map, trying to find kills, and chances are you're not going to find everything, and so one doesn't really work that well. Two, okay, you put me mid. I got the XP I wanted, I got the gold I wanted, got my Blink Dagger, I got my levels, great. Thing is, once again, farm is falling off. I would rather put a hero who is going to keep up the farm and is going to be useful with that continued farm. So, once again, doesn't really work perfectly. Then you go to support. Well, support isn't going to get fast levels, isn't going to get Blink Dagger fast. That's not good. So, well, crap. Now you've got offlane. And offlane is kind of a Goldilocks position for offlaners. They get their Blink Dagger later than they would with 1 and 2 position, but they still get it at a decent time. They still get it faster than they would as a support, and same goes with their levels. And at the same time, they don't really have to keep their farm up all game in order to, because if you're putting a hero like a Bat Rider in the 1 or 2 position, like I said, you're kind of wasting the position, in my opinion. I think that's the main reason for why offlaners are what they are. The other reason would be a lot of offlaners generally, or a lot of initiators, sorry, generally benefit from levels a lot. You think about Axe. Okay, great. I got my level 9. Now I have a 3.2 second call and pretty pretty damn scary spins and dunk. Think about Tidehunter, I want my Ravage. Think about Doom, I want my Doom. Think about Batrider, I want my Lasso, right? Clock, I want my Hook Shot. These heroes all benefit from these early levels that they're just not going to get as a support. So, again, offlaner kind of becomes that Goldilocks position where it's just right, because you're not really sacking your 1 or 2 positions, and at the same time, you're not coming online too late. So generally, that's kind of who offlaners are. Now, what do offlaners do would be the other important thing. And offlaners, there are a couple of offlaners, Nature's Prophet, Lone Druid, who, well, I guess kind of Bristleback as well, who go to the offlane and they kind of catch up and they can become the team's carry. Now, these offlaners, Bristleback is kind of popular. Nature's Prophet's not played at all. Lone Druid, if he's played, which is not very often, he's put in different lanes. So, the offlane position right now doesn't really have many carries in it. You think about like TI3, that was a whole different story. But right now, you don't really see carries there. So generally, it's not your team making the space for the offlaner, it's the other way around, right? So offlaners generally, I'd say 90+% of the time, once again, what they want to do is they want to get their quick levels, get that ability or that item that they need to get online, and then they're going to go create space. They're going to go kill enemy heroes with help of supports or the mid or what have you. And they're kind of like you think about how space making works. In the early game, it's the supports who are making the space. Once you start to transition into the mid game, that's when the offlaner starts to make the space, and that's when those levels really start to shine, because your supports are generally a bit lower level, and there's as the cores are getting progressively stronger than the supports, suddenly their ganks are less and less and less effective. So that's where the offlaner kind of becomes their saving grace, and now you have a hero who is going to run around ideally and get as many kills as possible, which is allowing your mid and your carry to farm up more and more and more, and eventually win you the game. And while it does this, it simultaneously prevents the other team's cores and supports from farming. So that's generally your... So, as you move into the mid game, your offlaner kind of becomes your space maker. Now, once you move on to the late game, this is when the offlaner becomes your initiator. Because, once again, it's kind of like... Your offlaner is kind of like a beefed up support, in a sense, right? And now your offlaner's fallen too far behind the carries and the mids to really get the kills on his own. So now he becomes an initiator, and everyone else is doing the damage. The 2 to 1. Maybe if you have some greedy supports, they start doing damage as well. So, yeah, that's the life of the offlaner. The offlaner is the sad guy in the early game who moves off, gets his levels, his items. Into the mid game he goes, makes space, and then in the late game he transitions into an initiator role. And that's offlaners as I see it, guys. So anyway, that's it for this one. Tomorrow I will be giving you guys the supports video, and once I give you the supports video, that will be the conclusion of this introductory series, and I'm going to start going through all the heroes, alphabetical order, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and hopefully you guys will continue to enjoy. Like, subscribe, give me feedback, let me know if you guys like this, and I'll do my best to pump out more videos. Alright, see you guys later.